Just moments ago, a tremor shook the monarchy as King Charles and Princess Catherine made a rare joint appearance to confirm what no royal watcher had dared to speculate. Prince Louis is facing a critical, life-altering condition. The atmosphere was heavy, Catherine's eyes welling with tears and Charles's voice cracking as he addressed the nation. Beneath the formal delivery, however, lies a tangled web of secrecy, denial, and dread that has been unraveling for months. The announcement was brief, but every word landed like a hammer. Standing side by side, Charles and Catherine broke palace protocol in a way not seen for decades. This was not merely formality, it was grief laid bare. Catherine's hands trembled as she tried to steady herself, her measured voice cracking under the weight of a mother forced to share her child's suffering with the world. Charles, usually stoic in the face of turmoil, appeared visibly broken, clutching his statement so tightly that his knuckles whitened and his eyes glistened with unshed tears. As the statement was read, one phrase echoed louder than the rest: a life-altering condition. No diagnosis was given, no timeline offered, just that haunting phrase, enough to send the public into a frenzy of worry and speculation. It was deliberate, calculated, and profoundly human. Now? That was the immediate question whispered across newsrooms and dining tables alike. Why had the royal family, so famously reserved in times of personal hardship, chosen this moment to reveal the truth? Sources close to the palace suggest the decision was agonizing. For weeks, perhaps months, senior royals and aides debated whether to keep Louis's condition private. But the growing whispers, the persistent absence of the young prince from royal events, and the undeniable toll it had taken on Catherine forced their hand. Even moments before the statement, aides behind the curtain were reportedly in distress. One royal correspondent noted a flurry of movement just before cameras rolled, with advisors rushing between corridors, staff visibly shaken, and senior press officers making last-minute adjustments. This was not just an announcement, it was the public unveiling of a burden long carried in silence. The media's initial response was one of stunned respect. No leaks, no headlines, just silence, a rare global pause as the weight of the words sank in. But it didn't last. Within hours, news outlets scrambled to fill the gaps. Was it a physical illness, a neurological disorder? Speculation ranged from developmental conditions to something more acute and sudden, with every theory igniting fresh waves of panic and sympathy. Social media erupted, and the hashtag #PrayForLouis began trending within minutes. Royal watchers, journalists, and supporters worldwide shared messages of love, concern, and disbelief. Whatever Prince Louis was facing, it was clear the world cared deeply. Yet this announcement was not born in a day, it was the culmination of a silent crisis brewing behind palace walls, cloaked in denial and desperation. Long before the public knew, hushed conversations in palace corridors hinted that something was terribly wrong. Why had Prince Louis vanished from public view? Why were doctors seen entering royal residences late at night? Subtle at first, barely noticeable to outsiders, the signs became glaringly obvious to those within the palace. Staff members whispered that Louis, once so full of life and energy, Prince Louis began spending longer hours in bed, not out of laziness, but sheer exhaustion. He just sleeps and sleeps, a housekeeper allegedly confided to a friend. And when he was awake, he was not the same, a quiet observation that ignited a ripple turning into a storm behind royal curtains. Concern first arose when several top medical professionals, none previously associated with the royal household, were discreetly ushered into Anmer Hall under heavy security, no press alerts, no palace statements, just unmarked vehicles and tightly controlled access. Then came the nocturnal visits to Windsor, again conducted in absolute silence. Yet silence, as it often does, spoke volumes. Catherine gradually began stepping back from her public commitments. Initially, the palace issued statements citing personal reasons, but soon those explanations vanished entirely. Events she had prepared for months were postponed or quietly reassigned, some removed from official calendars without notice. While the public speculated on stress or scheduling conflicts, insiders knew the truth was far more serious and painful. The press office faced mounting questions, and royal watchers pressed for answers about Louis's absence, but each inquiry was deflected with the same rehearsed phrase. The Princess of Wales is focusing on family at this time. Carefully crafted though it was, the phrase only heightened unease. Behind the scenes, aides were instructed not to discuss the young prince, and staff who asked too many questions were warned, reassigned, or silenced. Tension among palace personnel grew unbearable. Some feared not only for the prince's well-being, but also for their own complicity in a potential cover-up. What if something catastrophic was being hidden from the public? What if the crown prioritized legacy over honesty once again? Then came a leaked voicemail, later verified through multiple sources, capturing a fraught conversation between two senior aides, one whispering, "We can't survive another royal health crisis. This one's too close to home." One aide whispered, and the other panicked, "If this gets out, there will be chaos." Catherine was hanging by a thread. The leak forced the palace into damage control. Phones were seized, meetings held behind locked doors, yet the truth had already begun seeping through the cracks. What was once whispered in private now echoed across the nation. Even as insiders feared the worst, Charles and Catherine clung to hope until a devastating moment forced their hand. That moment came when Prince Louis collapsed in a private royal garden under the watch of a trusted nanny. It was supposed to be an ordinary afternoon. Louis had been playing quietly, away from cameras and noise, when suddenly his legs buckled and his body went limp. He didn't speak or cry, he just collapsed. The nanny screamed, prompting a flurry of movement from nearby security staff who had never seen such chaos in the usually serene royal grounds. Within minutes, an emergency medical team was dispatched through an undisclosed service entrance, unmarked vehicles moving with silent urgency. Every second mattered, but secrecy remained paramount. Inside the palace, Catherine, in a meeting with advisors, received the call. The phone fell from her hands before she even finished hearing the message. She didn't speak, she ran, no shoes, no coat, driven by raw instinct. That moment shattered her, perhaps irreparably. The strength she had clung to through weeks of silent suffering gave way to maternal terror. Charles, across the estate in a private strategy meeting with senior ministers, was informed moments later. Without hesitation, he stood mid-sentence and left. Witnesses said they had never seen the king more distraught. He didn't wait for protocol or security clearance, he simply went. What followed was a lockdown. Palace staff were confined to their wings, phones confiscated from anyone with CCTV access, and all digital recordings of the garden surveillance reportedly wiped within hours. The command was clear: no leaks, no mistakes, no slip-ups. The public must never know what really happened that day. By the next morning, a carefully worded statement was drafted, describing only a minor fall during playtime and stating that Louis had been seen by doctors purely as a precaution without explaining the gravity of the situation. The official statement made no mention of why 3 separate consultants had been flown in within the hour. It didn't acknowledge the private ambulance waiting at the back gate, nor the tear-stained faces of a mother and grandfather who had come terrifyingly close to losing someone they loved. It was the moment everything changed, not just for Louis, but for the entire institution. The illusion of control, the myth of royal immunity, had cracked wide open. Behind closed doors, specialists delivered a diagnosis that shattered the family's hopes. A rare neurological disorder, progressive, incurable, and largely misunderstood, now threatening to reshape the life of the youngest royal, and with it, the legacy of the modern monarchy. The confirmation came in hushed tones from a team of elite neurologists flown in under strict confidentiality. Though not publicly named, the condition was described as degenerative, slowly, but inevitably affecting Louis's ability to move, communicate, and process the world around him. There was no cure, only management, and even that offered little comfort. For a child born into a world of royal tradition and public scrutiny, this diagnosis was more than medical. It was existential. William and Catherine sat in stunned silence as the doctors laid out the progression. Early signs of memory confusion, intermittent motor control issues, and eventual speech disruption. The words landed like blows. Catherine reportedly collapsed into William's arms, and even the ever-stoic heir broke down beside her. Within days, private consultations began with specialists from Switzerland, the United States, and Germany, each offering insight but none offering hope. Some suggested experimental therapies, others advised immediate lifestyle changes. A few recommended complete seclusion to minimize emotional stress, yet none could alter the outcome. Whispers arose of temporarily relocating the family to a foreign estate to pursue treatment away from the British press, though the idea was met with resistance. The monarchy endures, not runs. Catherine reportedly pleaded for privacy, not for herself, but for her son, fearing the world's intrusion, the cameras, and the headlines. Charles, though devastated, reacted with fury, demanding second and third opinions, confronting the lead consultant personally, reportedly shouting that a future king's child does not suffer like this. Behind his outburst was fear. Not arrogance, the fear that the institution he led could not protect the one person who mattered most. Doctors issued warnings. As Louis's condition progressed, public episodes were inevitable, with sudden freezes or stumbles that the press would seize upon, threatening the monarchy's carefully constructed image of strength and succession, not through scandal, but through frailty. Catherine, already worn thin by months of anxiety, reached her breaking point, locking herself away for 2 full days, silent and alone to grieve not only the diagnosis but the life her son would now be denied. William, too, changed, becoming withdrawn, fiercely protective, cutting off certain royal calls, and beginning to draft plans not for duty, but for family, because now duty had to yield to love. Duty felt hollow. Now, the only priority was keeping Louis safe, even if that meant defying centuries of royal precedent. Yet, even as the family wrestled with grief, a deeper debate raged behind palace doors. How much should the world be told? In a monarchy built on image and legacy, vulnerability is dangerous. As Louis's condition became impossible to mask, 2 camps formed within the palace, those demanding transparency and those urging silence. At the heart of the storm stood William, struggling with himself and those around him. He had spent his life upholding duty, shaping every move to meet the expectations of a future king. But this was different. This wasn't a political scandal or tabloid rumor, this was his son. For the first time, William wanted to lead not with protocol, but with honesty, compassion, and humanity. He pushed quietly at first, suggesting a carefully crafted public message that could show strength without exploiting pain. But resistance came almost instantly. Charles, caught between generations and ideologies, became a symbol of royal paralysis. Raised in an era where stoicism was sacred, he struggled with emotional transparency. Every fiber of his reign had been defined by control, tradition, and the unspoken rules of monarchy, and now he was being asked to break them all. Privately, he admitted to advisors that the world had changed, but feared the monarchy hadn't adapted fast enough to survive it. His hesitation wasn't coldness, it was fear. Fear of a misstep that could unravel everything. Camilla, sources suggest, became the most vocal opponent of disclosure, reportedly warning Charles that revealing too much would invite chaos, turning Louis's condition into a spectacle and a weapon for critics. One insider quoted her as saying, "Protect the crown, not the child." Whether literal or interpreted through palace gossip, the sentiment ignited fury behind closed doors. Catherine, already unraveling, was said to be devastated by what she saw as a betrayal of maternal instinct and basic empathy. Meanwhile, the palace press office descended into turmoil. Multiple drafts of public statements were written, revised, and scrapped, advisors arguing over tone, timing, and even the terminology used to describe the condition. Should they remain vague, lean into public sympathy, or wait and hope the news cycle moved on? Weeks passed. Public speculation swelled, media scrutiny became invasive, and through it all, the family remained silent, paralyzed by fear and divided by loyalty, love, and duty. Catherine, once composed under the relentless pressure of royal life, began to crumble under the weight of inaction. She watched strangers online speculate about her son's health with wild and often cruel theories, while news anchors dissected his absence as if investigating a crime. Yet she remained gagged by duty, silenced by a palace more concerned with perception than pain. But silence, in the end, is its own confession. As tension reached a breaking point, one voice shattered the quiet, and it wasn't who anyone expected. It came from Charlotte, brave and bright, who unknowingly let the truth slip during a school event, revealing to a classmate words that no palace could retract. The day had begun like any other, a routine school function filled with laughter, performances, and proud parents. Yet behind the smiles, Charlotte carried a burden far heavier than any child should bear. Her little brother, the one who used to chase her down palace corridors and tell her silly bedtime jokes, had changed. She didn't understand the science or the diagnosis, but she saw the pain. Speaking from the heart, she told a friend quietly, "Louis gets very tired now. He forgets things sometimes." What she intended as innocent honesty became a storm the monarchy wasn't prepared for. The parent of the classmate, shocked and sympathetic, unknowingly passed the comment along during a casual conversation with a family friend. Within 24 hours, Charlotte's whispered words were plastered across international headlines, sending the palace into full crisis mode. Lockdown. Damage control protocols were activated. Advisors were pulled from holidays, and meetings stretched into the early hours, But the truth was beyond spin. The phrase "he forgets things" was dissected on every talk show, morning segment, and blog post. Neurologists speculated live on air, and former royal insiders weighed in with ominous tones. The secret was out, and this time it came from within. Inside the palace, Catherine was inconsolable. She hadn't prepared Charlotte for the crushing weight of royal secrecy, having shielded her daughter for as long as possible to preserve what little innocence palace life hadn't already taken. But now that innocence had become the spark that ignited a wildfire, Charlotte, still just a child, was heartbroken. She didn't understand why her words had caused such chaos, or why people treated Louis not just as her brother, but as a symbol of royal vulnerability. Advisors urged the family to shield her from the media storm, and they did, yet the damage was done. The world now knew, and the palace was once again the last to admit it. Social media exploded, hashtags surged, conspiracy theories flourished, supporters demanded transparency, and critics accused the monarchy of deception. Overnight, silence turned from dignified restraint into perceived cruelty. Public pressure mounted like never before. The palace's carefully constructed wall had collapsed, not through scandal, but through the voice of a child. With every hour of unacknowledged speculation, the monarchy's credibility frayed. Drafts stopped. Silence could no longer suffice. The press team issued an ultimatum: speak now, or lose control of the narrative forever. Under mounting pressure and heartbreak, Charles and Catherine finally emerged to speak words no royal parent should ever have to utter. For the first time, they stood side by side not as sovereign and subject, but as grandfather and mother, united in pain. The moment they appeared, everything changed. The weight of their silence, the strain of secrecy, and the suffocating fear of what lay ahead were etched into their faces. There was no pageantry, no fanfare, just a table, two prepared statements, and two people who looked more like grieving family than monarchy. Catherine's hands trembled as she clutched the pages, and Charles, usually so composed, appeared hollow, lips pressed tightly together as if holding back something deeper than words. When Catherine began to speak, her voice was soft but cracked with exhaustion. She did not hide behind formality. She did not speak like a future queen. She spoke like a mother breaking apart piece by piece. "Our son," she said, "is facing challenges we never imagined. He is brave, resilient, and deeply loved. But he is unwell." The room, the country, the world held its breath. Charles followed, his voice firmer but no less emotional, speaking not as a king, but as a grandfather. His eyes glistened as he described Louis's courage, his laughter, and his growing awareness of his own limitations. "He knows something is different," Charles said quietly, and still he smiles. For a man groomed to rule without revealing too much of himself, it was an astonishing act of emotional exposure. What followed was not merely a royal update. It became a national reckoning. The palace released a scanned message from Louis himself, written in shaky but determined handwriting. "Thank you for thinking of me. I'm trying my best." That single sentence unraveled millions. News outlets interrupted programming. Social media overflowed with tears, prayers, and empathy. For once, the public didn't see royalty, they saw a family, fragile, human, real. Public figures, celebrities, activists, and even former critics shared heartfelt messages, while royal commentators shifted from fashion and tradition to defending the family's need for privacy and care. Overnight, the world remembered that beneath the titles and tiaras, these were people facing profound pain. Yet even in this moment of unity, cracks within remained. The press asked pointed questions about who knew what, why it took so long to speak, and who had fought to stay silent. Camilla's absence from the statement did not go unnoticed, nor did William's. While the world mourned with them, a new storm was brewing behind closed doors, one that could fracture the family from within. William was unraveling, torn between his role as future king and his duty as a father. When the joint statement was delivered, he deliberately stood just out of frame, watching Catherine and Charles speak to the world with trembling hearts. Weeks of internal debate had led him to push back against the royal machine, the unending expectations of crown and country. He did not want briefings or speeches. He wanted to be with his son. When he formally requested a year-long leave from royal duties, it sent shockwaves through the palace. Never before had a direct heir asked for such a thing. Charles, already bearing the weight of a transitioning monarchy, reportedly refused flatly, telling aides, "There is no time for absence." William's request was born of desperation, not selfishness, and the refusal marked a fracture. What followed were tense and deeply emotional arguments between father and son. William accused the institution of failing to protect Louis, of hiding behind PR statements while his child suffered in silence. While Charles tried to remind his son of duty, lineage, and the legacy that must be preserved, but for William, none of that mattered anymore. He wasn't thinking like a future king. He was thinking like a father on the brink of losing something irreplaceable. Fueling his defiance was a growing mistrust of Camilla's influence over palace decisions. William reportedly believed she had too much control over matters that should have been between him and his father, privately blaming her for delays in going public about Louis's condition, suspecting she prioritized optics over well-being. These tensions widened the rift, turning quiet conversations into whispered wars behind palace doors. Catherine, caught between the two most important men in her life, tried to hold the line, but even she couldn't stop the unraveling. Months of braving Louis's illness had already exhausted her, and now she was being pulled into a political chess game between a crown she would someday wear and a family she was barely holding together. Rumors soon emerged that William had considered stepping away from the line of succession, altogether not out of resentment, but out of love consulting legal advisors on what it would take. The idea, once unthinkable, became a real, breathing possibility. Just as the family teetered on the edge of fracture, Princess Anne stepped forward with a bold proposition that changed everything. Loyal, sharp, and unshakably protective, and confronted Charles in a private meeting at Clarence House, issuing a stunning ultimatum: prioritize the children or risk losing the public forever. She had observed the indecision, emotional disarray, and escalating tensions, recognizing that the crisis was not just familial, but institutional. Her words were blunt and surgical. In attempting to preserve the image of strength, the monarchy had shown its greatest weakness, neglecting the children who mattered most, while public sentiment shifted dangerously in favor of compassion over tradition. But Anne did not stop at criticism. She proposed a solution, a bold vision for a new royal charter, centered not on titles or rituals, but on transparency, humanity, and protection. For the first time in royal history, the family would place the well-being of its youngest members ahead of its oldest traditions, structurally and symbolically reimagining strength through service and truth, rather than silence. She later met with William privately, away from cameras and advisors, and afterward, his tone shifted. Still guarded, he was no longer drifting. Catherine reportedly noted it was the first time he had slept through the night in weeks, and reminded him he was not alone, that someone within the walls of the institution had his back. Whispers soon spread that Anne had offered to take on part of Louis's care herself, arranging private accommodations at her estate. Not out of duty, but love. Some viewed it as family solidarity, others as a calculated power move, the boldest since Diana defied convention. Regardless of motive, the effect was undeniable, and had changed the game. As the monarchy reels from the storm, and the world watches with bated breath, one truth remains: the royal family will never be the same again.